Hi, I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop. There we go. Uh-oh. Somebody left the batteries in too long. That's not good. Might not work. I'll have to see. This post is pretty bad. Well, the project for today is the DigiSense Dual Logic Thermocouple Thermometer made by EUTECH Instruments. I picked this up at the Restore for $5. Came with a thermocouple, which on its own is an expensive thing. And when I went to turn it on, I found that the battery box was filled with leaked battery fluid. So I took it off and I cleaned it with some vinegar to remove the alkaline deposits from the battery, and then soap and water to remove the vinegar. So now I'm putting the case back together again so we can see if this is going to work. Get out this little kit of Phillips head screwdrivers, because these are tiny little screws. This worked, but it's really too big. This is a cheap set of precision screwdrivers. They used to be sold at Radio Shack and all over the place. I imagine you can still find them because they are quite useful. It's got a little button on the end so it spins, and you can hold it, put pressure on it, and spin it with your fingers. Nice thing is, they go really tiny. This set is down to the 0-3. There's a slot for a 0-1, but the 0-1 isn't in there. Make sure I got all the screws tight. Just snug. These are into plastic, so there's no need to really drive them hard. And this is considered safe and intrinsically safe for use in Class 1, Division 1, Group A, B, C, and D hazardous locations. Oh, there's still guck on the bottom of that. I'll have to clean that off. So now I have the battery box door clean. We have the back of the case on. Now let's pop the batteries in. Have to maintain the polarity. I got quite a spring in there. There. Now let's put the cover on. I'm always thinking, do I leave the cover off till I'm sure the batteries work? And then I think, well, if you put it on now, you won't forget it later. Might mean a little extra work, but okay. Now this one still has the original cover on it to protect the screen, so that's good. Okay, we have power. That's good. It says on. Okay, we've gone through the battery installation and replacement. We have a Type K thermocouple. Yellow cable. Type K has a range of from 418 minus 418 to plus 2501. So this is a great one for me because it has a large range and will work in several different environments. And it also accepts 2 thermocouples. It's kind of cool. And it says it's 75.4 degrees in here. That's perfect. That means it's working. If only one thermocouple is being used, it can be connected to either T1 or T2. T1 and T2 are these two here, these little slots. This is T1 on the left and T2 on the right. Thermocouples are always determined by color. This one happens to be yellow, so that makes it a type K. When we used to do tests on the homogenizer, we had a thermocouple. Well, actually, we had multiple thermocouples that we would attach to the logs in the homogenizer, run them in, then we would go along and plug in a thermocouple as we needed it. We had each one numbered, we knew where it was, and so we could say, okay, the top right hand corner on the far side of the burners is this temperature, and on the near side of the burners is that temperature. We wanted to be able to control the temperature in the oven to keep the temperature at 1050. 1050 was the perfect temperature to homogenize the billets or the logs to make the crystal structure of the aluminum form small grains. You wanted to have small grains on aluminum extrusion. You didn't want large grains. Large grains tends to separate when they were being extruded and cause cracking. So we would heat the oven up to 1050 degrees and let it sit there and soak for about 3 hours to make sure that everything was up to temperature. Then we would pull it out and have to cool it down within 50 minutes. Absolutely had to be cooled down within 50 minutes. So we had large fans and we would blow air through the stack of logs. Each time we got somebody else new in charge, we went through a process of trying to figure out how to run the homogenizing oven because everyone had a great idea on how it should be run. Unfortunately, there's only one way that it really worked well, and if you changed any part of that, it caused a problem. So, life being what it is, I spent a lot of time testing the homogenizing oven for the 9 years that I was there. And each time, my crew had done this multiple times. We had put the thermocouples in, we had tested it, we had stood there and swapped out thermocouples on the reader and recorded it faithfully. Each time knowing that we were going to lose another load of homogenized logs. Because if you got it above 1050, the logs melted. If you were lucky, they only sagged. A sagged log was still somewhat usable, but the people on the log saw really didn't like it because it didn't run down the track, and trying to cut 19 or 20 inch section of aluminum out of an 8-inch log that was bent kind of looked like a S-curve, or more like a sine wave. You would have to chop it up in little pieces and try and cut the ends off so that it lined up. It's just a tremendous amount of wasted time. But 100,000 pounds of logs, each pound being worth about 40 cents, meant that you didn't just go, oh well, we'll just do it over again. Major pain in the butt. When it went really bad and you had aluminum dripping out of the bottom of the oven, that's when you knew it was going to be a bad day, because the logs set on rails. And if you got aluminum wrapped around the rails, the log, which set on a rail car, it was actually on a flatbed rail car from the train. And when you melted the logs and they dripped down around those the separator rails, it became one large mass of 100,000 pounds of aluminum with steel bars basically encased in it. No easy way to cut it apart, no easy way to remove it. It was just a horrible mess. That only happened once. And that was because when I tried to explain something to the person who was running it, they were adamant about they knew what they were doing. Well, unfortunately I did too, so I just stepped back and said, okay, you can't win this one because you've got a fool, and you can argue with fools, but they will grab you and drag you down into the mud with them. So it's best to just let them learn by experience. Their experience just means that they go back to their office and they feel bad. My experience that I'm learning is that I don't want to do this anymore. They need to find some other place to be. So life is good if you let it be. Okay, this is working just fine, and I have a data logger that will store the information. It will print it out, and there's a whole lot of stuff in this book that I'm going to have to read and understand, but for right now I can say that this thermocouple thermometer is a definite win. $5. New, this runs about $400. That was the price that I saw. I haven't looked up the price of the thermocouple, but if it was anything like the thermocouples I used to buy, which was between 1980 and 1990 is when I was buying them, they're expensive. Cool deal. A restore score well worth the money. Can't talk this morning. Okay, that's it for the data. That's it for the dual logic thermocouple thermometer made by EUTECH. If you have any suggestions for a new video, questions about today's video, or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments. You know I read them all. I get lucky every once in a while, and this was a good one. That's a fair amount of weight.